This is the continuation of the lecture on manipulating and creating feature classes for Introduction to GIS. This portion of the lecture, we are going to learn how to create what's referred to as an event feature class. This is often used if you have a series of GPS points, latitude and longitude coordinates that need to be digitized quickly. If you have an existing database that already has latitude, longitude, or more specifically decimal points in it, this is a way to get them onto the map. There is a way to convert latitude and longitude directly to decimal points. There's an exercise that you have about this in several websites. We, for this exercise, are just going to cheat a little bit and borrow the decimal points that the computer program provides for us. So, as usual, the first thing we have to do is get ourselves set up. So in most cases, you would have an existing database that has decimal points or latitude in it. We are going to go ahead and create one. So just like all of the other tables or feature classes that you make, you need to start out in your safe space. This would be your folder. Again, note I'm in catalog. Your folder for your exercise that you're working on. You can use an existing PGD if you have one, although again, as a reminder, I would just encourage you to create a new one. They're easy to do, and it just makes things a little cleaner. So here I have a PGD for creating an event feature class. I right-click on it down to New, and we are going to start with a table. We're going to give our table a name. We'll just call it event feature class just to make it a little bit clearer which one we're talking about. And then we're going to add the fields as we do in all other circumstances. I'm just going to create a name field that I will leave at text. Now at this point is where we differ from the way we've done fields before. In order to create an event feature class, you need to have a field that represents the latitude coordinate, and you need to have a field that represents the longitude coordinate. Now the computer doesn't necessarily know what those things are, and remember it also does not recognize north, south, east, or west, or degrees, minutes, and seconds. So we have to prompt the computer with the way that it understands latitude and longitude. As opposed to the words latitude, although you could use those, we're going to create a field called X coordinate, or I'm just going to abbreviate it there. And then the data type that you use for this will also be different than your traditional fields. For numbers, we've used short or long integers. For letters, we've used text. If you're inputting decimal degrees or converted latitude longitude coordinates, you would use either the word float or double. The difference between them is just the number of decimal points past the period. Double has more, so we'll go ahead and use that. Our database is not big enough that we would need to worry about space. Then we will make the other coordinate, so we'll just call that the Y coordinate. And again, we will make this in the form of what's referred to as double. And then we just finish. This is a fairly simple process. So here we have our event feature class. Again, I'm still in catalog where we always make the shell, and then we click and drag this over to our map project. Since I don't need catalog anymore, I'll go ahead and close it. If I open up this feature class, it looks like, or excuse me, this table looks like all the others. It's a shell, but it does not have any data in it. Now, what we're going to need to do, of course, is edit it. So, as usual, we have to start editing from our editor toolbar. It asks us what we want to edit, and we provide that information. So we have a new space for a new record. Now, if I put my cursor into the map, I want you to note down at the bottom right corner. You can see as I move my cursor, this set of numbers right here changes. This is actually the latitude longitude coordinate of where my cursor is, provided nicely in decimal degrees, which is what we need in order to input into a database for the computer. So what I'm going to do is just type in some random names. It doesn't matter, right? I'm just making this up. And then I'm going to use this as a cheat sheet. So I will just place my cursor somewhere in the map, and then just type the decimal degrees that I have into the table itself. So the next thing we need to know is which of these numbers is the latitude and which of these numbers is the longitude. So we have to remember latitude, if you will, runs east-west but is measured north-south of the equator. So if you're looking at a grid, that would be the vertical axis, which is what's referred to as the y-axis. So the x-coordinate is going to be our longitude line, which are the lines that run north-south, and you measure them east or west of the prime meridian. Now the negative here is very important because remember, the computer does not understand east and west. So the negative represents west and the positive represents east. So I'm going to type negative 114,554 for our x-coordinate, tab over to y, put in 48.138. Then tab to the next option, put in another random name, move my cursor someplace else, look down, remember I'm looking down at these numbers here, randomly place my cursor, in this case, although in a real project, of course, you would be more specific about this, 416, 47.838. And then however many you have, right? I'm only going to do 2 for sake of ease. So once we're finished editing our data, typing in all of our information, or again, if you already have this in a table, all you have to do is pull it in. I'm going to stop editing, and yes, we want to save our edits. So now I have a table that has the x-coordinate or the longitude line and the y-coordinate or the latitude line with some additional data. In this case, I just have name. Now the computer does not understand that I am creating a table I want it to convert. So the next thing that we have to do is tell it. We go to our table of contents where it shows our table. We right-click to display XY data. So in this case, if we had lines, we could do routing, but in this case, we just have a single decimal point. So we're going to do that, display XY data. Now the dialog box that pops up asks for a couple of pieces of information that it prompts you with. So what it says here is, I need to know which field within your table contains the x-coordinate information. I found one called x-coordinate, and that seems pretty likely to me, so it will prompt you with that one. But if, however, you're pulling in a database from someplace else and the fields are labeled oddly or differently, all you have to do is pick it. Now another thing that this has a benefit for of if you mix them up, if you get your, if you will, lefts confused with your rights or your latitudes confused with your longitudes, all you would have to do is come in here and swap them, right? Put the y for the x and the x for the y. But hopefully ours are correct, and so we'll leave them as is, and then we just say OK, and boom, it's that easy. We get our 2 points that pop up immediately. Now another thing that's very nice about this process is, let's say that I forgot one or one has been added. I can very easily go back in, add another one, find a new point here wherever it might be, minus 110,514, tab over 46.353, tab over, and look, I don't even have to save it. It has already prompted it here. So if I go ahead and save it just to close that out, I can very easily add new records to this. So this is a very useful thing. There are all kinds of circumstances where you have a list of latitude, longitude coordinates that you need to have mapped. Maybe you're creating a map of lampposts, or maybe you're creating a map of where pizza places are in the city. It doesn't matter. Any place that there is a point of location, a geographic point of location, and you have a series of them, you can just very easily make a table that contains them and map them very quickly, almost immediately. So that concludes this lecture.